don't see anything just yet. Are we live?
No, are we live?
You are live.
Oh, we are
You are
live.
live.
I was like, are we live? I don't even know if we were live or not.
You are live. Go.
We're just sitting here. We're just like, are we live? Are we not live?
That's what we talk about when you guys aren't around. I haven't even checked into the market. I stopped looking at everything. So I had no clue that so tech is green right now.
Is it? I have been paying attention only to Apple and Lucid for now, but
So I don't know. I don't trust it.
you don't trust it?
Let's look at some charts. What is the SPY doing right now?
Let's pull up SPY. And then we'll go over Lucid and Apple for the followers on Twitter and on Webull, because that's one of the plays that we kind of gave out. And just to kind of talk about how to, look for entries. So SPY is, pretty strong right now, right? And let's see. So we want to see a break above 393.28 to continue a run. But as of right now, on the 5-minute chart, was that
392.28?
Now I want to see a break above 393.31, for that run to kind of continue on at least on a little bit of a bullish side, right? This is on the 5-minute time frame. It is looking bullish, right? Like it's crossed over all the, all my indicators for a little bit of a bullish run. But, we'll see how the last hour goes. You guys will be with us for the last hour.
It is power hour. So.
It is power hour, right? It is power hour. So I didn't play SPY today. It is Thursday.
Yeah.
I decided not to play SPY today only because, I was so focused on Apple and I was also focused on Lucid, right? Because those were like, my watch list stocks. And then also Walmart. Walmart just looked, pretty for me, right? And we got into puts on, on Walmart. So we'll talk about that, right? And you see how SPY right now, like I said, it has to break. I want to see it break 330, 333.40. I want to see the candle break above for that continuation. And
so 393.40.
Yeah, 393.40 is kind of where I want to see it.
Like the candle close above.
Yeah,
right.
I don't want to see a wick, right? Like we saw that wick over here. I don't want to really see a wick. I want to see it close, and then potentially testing 394.26. If it breaks, then 395.56 and and upward, right? So I have my targets in place, and
is this on the 1 minute or the 2?
This is on the 5-minute, right? So I'm scaling out. I just want to see how it looks on the 5-minute, and then what I like to do is let me just see on the 1 hour time frame, because this is important, right? So whenever you're looking at anything that you're looking for, SPY or QQQ or even your own stocks that you're playing, you'll notice that right here, this is like a peach kind of color. And that's where so I added another indicator to my chart, which is the EMA 48, right? So I have the 20, was that?
So which ones do you have now?
So now, I still have my 9, I still have my 20, I still have my 200, but I've also added the 48, right? And I've noticed that on the 48, one of our, our Discord members, lifetime member, Tyler, he told me about the EMA 48. And he's like, oh, it actually plays out really well. So I back tested the theory and I wanted to see if, how it works out. And that's how I used it today. Like I used it with Walmart, we'll talk about that put auction a little bit later. And I used the, the 48. And right now, right, if we look at SPY, it's looking like.
Just like you do with the EMA 9 and 20 when they cross, is that you just
so the 48 would kind of like act either as a support or a resistance, right? It's just like the 200 does, right? So now we're inching closer towards that 48 mark, right? We're also inching closer to that price target that I have of 394.26. So if it comes down, if it comes up to that, that 394.75, which is where the the 48 EMA is at on the 1 hour time frame, right? Because you want a bigger picture. You want to see, okay, where can it potentially go to, right? So whenever I'm looking at, if I'm looking at SPY, like I just kind of want to see where it goes to. If I want to say, okay, we're going to continue a bull run, or we're going to go bearish, right? So me, what I would do is I would see how it acts on that, on that 48 mark. And if it can't break, what do? You buy puts, right? Because that could be a nice little rejection, coming back and at least testing 392.86 area, right? Because that's where it looks like it's been rejected, right? So I have this call entry that I said, hey, for myself, not for anybody else. I had this call entry that I said, hey, well, if it breaks 392.86 and it can sustain it in the morning, I might go for calls, right? And it didn't, right? Like it didn't do it. In fact, it went into the put side. And like I said, I didn't play SPY because I was too busy in in Apple and another stock that I played earlier. So I like to look at this area right here and say, okay, if this break, if it rejects, that's a good area to potentially get into puts, right? So
That's
now I
the
want to
48
see,
that you're pointing to right now.
what was that?
That's
Yeah,
the 48. Okay.
this is the target that I'm pointing to right now, right? So now, I go back out and I'm like, all right, well, what is it doing on the 15-minute time frame, right? It's because you want to look at the bigger picture. And if you notice on the 15-minute time frame, I'm going to kind of zoom it out for you guys, right? You're going to see that it's right by the 200, right? Like it's testing the 200. So notice that on the 1 hour time frame, it's a EMA 48. On the 2 hour, on the 15-minute time frame, it's the EMA 200, right? So just so that way you could hypothetically have an idea of where can SPY go to right now, right? So it is in a bullish scenario, right? But can it break and hold the 200, right? Which is exactly at 394.92, right? So I expect us to potentially try to test 394.92 area before decides to reject, right? But we've seen SPY sometimes not even come close to the 200, right? So
So
if
the
I'm
48
looking
is
now
better for
on,
that then.
what was that?
Then the 48 would be better.
Yeah, I mean, like the 48. No. The 48 is, like I said, that was on the 1 hour time frame, right? The 200 EMA that we were looking at was on the 15-minute time frame, right? So they're all 200 is the most important one for me, right? Because that's like a key level where either it's going to hold or it's going to break, right? Thank you. Yeah, the Apple Watch was fire. So is Lucid, right? Lucid was on fire too. Um, and if we're looking at, if I'm looking at SPY right now on the 5 minute, what do you see over here, love? Like, you've been watching my candles really well. What do you see forming over here? Potential form.
On the Apple, you guys have to excuse me. I have to
SPY.
get close to be able.
This is SPY right now.
Oh, it's the SPY. Okay. Why were we talking about Apple? All I see is a doji.
Yeah, we see a doji, right? So it's undecisive on what the price action will potentially be for the following candle, right? But it also looks like a tweezer top forming, right?
Oh, it could
So
be. It could be a tweezer tops. Look at that.
it could be a tweezer top forming, right?
Learning.
And so this is like that area where, okay, two things, obviously it's gonna go up or go down. Everybody knows that, right? Like everyone knows that. So in this area right here, is where a lot of traders decide to either get into puts or calls, right? Based off of what's going to happen on this candle, right? But for an entry, you want to look at the 1 minute or the 3 minute time frame. If you're not an experienced trader, right? And I'm not discrediting anybody.
That's me.
I'm just saying if you're not an experienced trader, you go on the 3 minute time frame. Do not get wicked out on the 1 minute time frame if
Oh
you're
my
not an experienced
No, it's hard to spot trends because things happen so quickly in that one. It's dangerous, especially if you're not someone who scalps, right?
Mhm.
And you're not prepared to get in and out quickly. So the 1 minute's really, really dangerous. I still look at it,
Yeah.
right? But I don't trade off of it at all because you need confirmation. And on 1 minute candles, you can't really get that confirmation, right?
Exactly, right. And here's that, right? You see, like it came. What did it do? It pulled right back down, right? And so this is that pullback. Like you never want to get in, at the top, right? You want to see, okay, I want to see a pullback, and I want to see if it can break and base back above, right? This was an indicator that no, we're not going to go up right now, right? You see how
Yeah,
on
yeah.
the
Look at
3 minute
that.
time frame,
You could have easily got wicked out on that 1 minute. Oh my
yeah,
God.
yeah.
Yeah.
So on the 3 minute time frame, you see how clear that is, right?
Yeah.
Um, and you have to see, okay, does this hold the 20, right? Now we're at that 20 level, right?
Mm.
Does it hold that 20? You see how this is a lot different than if we go on the 1 minute, right? On the 1 minute, you're going to be like, oh my God, like, what do I do, right?
You
The
could be
3 minute,
getting something really quickly and it
yeah,
could seriously easily flip the other way.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because this is a retest, right? Like you always want that retest. Whenever I tell any traders, hey, like, do I get in? They ask me, do I get in as soon as it breaks your call level? No, you never get back. You never get in right away, right?
Right.
You want to see how it tests it, right? And I'll give you an example. So let's just say, for
I'm one of
instance,
those traders that get FOMO, right? And waiting for confirmation is hard for me, but understand why it's necessary. Because it's like I want to be early sometimes, and it's like, no, you want to be right. You don't want to be early. Just want to make sure you're on the right path, especially for a swing trader.
yep.
Right?
And now this is,
Patience for me.
this is Lucid, right? So one of the entries, one of the watch list, was Lucid, and we said
What
calls
was the
above.
first entry?
Was that 1750? Yeah.
Okay.
Now look, when it opened, right? It opened above our first price target.
Okay.
People will be like, "Oh, I'm going to get in." No, 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 no. You always wait for confirmation.
No,
You want that pullback, right? Here's your pullback, and you notice that as it came down, this is your pivot, right? Where did the pivot happen? It happened at our call entry, and from there, you
oh,
had it go up, right? So now, when you're here, and say for instance, you miss out on on this candle over here, what do? You wait to see it kind of pull back, right? Here's your pullback, and this is an entry for calls because now, if you look at it, the low is you have a new higher low, right? So you're not going the opposite way,
so was
right?
that orange line right there? Was it testing the EMA 9? Is
This
that
is a 20. Orange is a 20,
20? Okay.
right?
Mine is
Yeah.
mine.
And then you have your VWAP crossing. At this stage, you have all indicators showing that this is a bullish scenario, right? So this is where you say, okay, you know what? I'm going to get into calls. You don't have to call a bottom. You want to play the trend, right? Like this is your trend. You getting in over here at 1780 doesn't mean that just because it hits 1750 that now you just jump into the call. No, you want to see it. You want to see how the pullback will happen, right? And then you get into your cost. Now, this is on a 3 minute time frame, right? If you go onto the 1 minute time frame, people are like, yeah, but you miss out on the 1 minute. Yeah, but the thing is that you'd rather be safe than sorry, right? So if you this is on the 1 minute time frame, right? So same thing, right? That 3 minute time frame, you see like everything is just hugging, the call side, right? And this is now at 950. There is no reason for anybody to get into calls over here, right? Because we went above our first price target when the market opened with
And you have
Lucid,
to
with
wait when the
Apple.
market opens to do something
Yeah,
like that. Like you don't have an established trend just yet. Anything can happen.
exactly. Exactly. Right.
Minutes.
And so same thing, like so the 1 minuters, right? They wait for a pullback. Here's your pullback. And then the entry would be like right about here because this is where all your crossovers happen for your 9, your 20, your VWAP, everything crossed over. And the entry was right here, right at 10 o'clock. And that entry, you could just start playing that out, right? So then
So when
what
you
I've
say
started,
out, like you have certain target levels that you give everybody, right? And so depending on your own risk level, you can pick your own strikes, expiries, things like that. But then you have those levels to say I can start scaling out here and start watching those particular levels, right?
so yes, right? That's part one. You want to start scaling out. You can start scaling out, right? But if you what a lot of people don't do, and I've seen, not talk about paper handing, or they just see a little bit of profit, like, oh my god, right? Oh my god, I got 10%, I'm out, right? Like if you notice, like a lot lately, like I've been able to almost maximize my profits, right? On my alerts I give out on Twitter,
Is
right?
it because I
Right,
used to get
because
for paper handing all the time.
yeah, because I paper hand so much,
You're like
right? So
profit, take it.
take
Well,
it, right?
all this
But
work
now,
to be right. Like you knew, you spotted the trend. You pretty much knew what was going to happen. You're
right.
like, you need to get all that reward, at least most of it.
So
No
when
paper.
you're in a play, Don't stay in on a 1 minute time frame. Do not stay in on a 3 minute time frame. You want to look at the 5 and the 15. The 5 and the 15 will give you an idea of how your movement, your price action movement is, right? So had you got into those calls early at 10 o'clock, which was right here, tweezer bottoms on the 5 minute time frame, pretty interesting. And you're
We got to
in
talk about
your,
tweezers one day, just so everybody knows what those are and
yeah,
how important. Because I've been trying to, like, before Romeo told me what they actually were, I would think that any like long wicks to the up or the bottom were tweezers, and they're not. Like, it's
right.
not just any random long wicks that you see at the top. They're like, oh, there's two. Those are no. It's like a specific thing you're looking for. It like, yeah. So
Yeah.
that was a lesson for myself.
That's a nice lesson. So now when you're in this position, right, how do you get out of your position? Okay. Zoom out to the 5 minute time frame and start looking at the drop, like, the pump and then how it comes back down, right? So if you're in a play over here, your next area, I'm gonna do this right here, right? You want to make sure that your candles does not come back below this area right here, right? Because
That's
then you're gonna go almost negative, right? Like
yeah.
because of the theta movement, right? And then what you just start, just keep an eye on it, right? You start noticing, okay, well, it hit you hit your second price target. Okay, where is going to be my exit strategy? If it comes back down, you do it at the base of this candle, right? On the 5 minute. That's all you're doing, right? You're just kind of waiting it out, right? You see it come back. This is on the 5 minute. On a 1 minute and a 3 minute, it's just going to completely ruin you if you do that. That's why you have to scale
And
out.
watch that.
Yeah, and not many people do that, right? And they're like, oh, I got out, and then basically, as this is going, you just keep changing your targets, right? So you say, okay, this is my next area. And what happened? We hit all our targets. Cool. And you're going to be like, you know what? I will get out if it hits my third price target, right?
Yeah,
Because
you
you've
have
already hit all your
to.
4 price targets. You're
And it
still going to
doesn't
be
matter how
profitable.
long you can sit and watch this too, because lately a lot of people are like, I'm trading for a couple hours, I have to work, I have to do something else. So not all of us can sit here and watch.
So
But
then what do
right.
is when you're up like this, right? You don't have to secure profits right away. You move your stop loss up, right? Look at your prices when you were at this level, right? Keep an eye on what percentage you were at, what the dollar amount was. So say for instance, you got in over here at $1, right? And over here right now, it's at, when you got to this price target, it was $1.30, just hypothetically, right?
Mhm.
And now it's at 140. You can do your stop loss between 125 and 130, walk away, right? Walk away. You have time, right? And you still made 20 to 30% profit, no
No
matter
matter
what,
what. Yeah.
right? Now you come back in later on, it's 12:30, and now you're way up here. Your contracts are a lot better, right? So what happened is like, okay, well, shoot, you know what? It's 12:15, hey, let's do the same concept. Okay, well, this is it right here. Where was the next pivot? Okay, like, you know what, since we're so high up, we've already passed through all our targets. Let's just say this is the area now that I want to get out. If it comes back down, it came back down right here, I'm out. That's it, right? Because you've now secured more profit. Does
Yeah.
it make sense? So understand that if we go on to the 15-minute time frame now, right, you're starting noticing all those arrows.
This market is crazy, people. Like just checking in.
Right? So here it is, right? Oops, sorry. I got to get a little bit better with TOS sometimes. All right, look at where all my arrows were on the 15-minute time frame at the bottom of each candle.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? So if you're paying attention to this, there's nothing telling you to sell so early. There's nothing telling you to sell,
So
right?
that's really important right there, because people are like, how do I stop paper handing versus how do I not ride an elevator? And how
Correct.
do you tell the difference between those two things?
Right.
Well, look at what Romeo just did in terms of looking at the charts, the different time frames, and the candles. The candles indicated that there was still going to be that continuation of the trend versus it being reversed. And so the chart told you you didn't have to sell right now, right? It's not just up in the air. You get to actually look at something that indicates, okay, I don't have to sell right now. Now,
Exactly.
had it been a different trend, had the candles been going the opposite direction, well, hopefully then your stop losses were in place and
Yep.
you got out.
because not everything will go straight up, right? Like we'll take a look at
I
Apple, right?
mean,
Because
all of
Apple,
today, let's talk about it, right?
yeah, this is Apple, right? So now this is where you have to understand with Apple, right? And how we played it in the morning when I gave my Twitter alert out and I said,
I was
hey,
late, by the way, people, to the Apple trend. I did not see it right away, right? But I did recognize on the chart it still had some places to go. So I got it. Like Romeo just said in the other lesson, like if you didn't get in it right at that for Lucid, right at that bottom, there was other opportunities to get in. So with
correct,
Apple, I was like, where's my? I'm getting in right here, right?
right?
I
And
didn't.
so, okay, let's talk about Apple this morning, right? And I understand, like, this is also a lesson, right? And because I want you guys to think about,
Small
okay,
account
well,
friendly.
was
Just
that?
I said small account friendly.
Yeah,
Like
it's very small account friendly. But let's just take a look at this, right? So in the morning, in the first, like, we got into this trade, I think in about 10 minutes, within 10 minutes of the market opening, right? And why did I do that? I'll tell you why, and I'll give you an example, right? So I said, okay, I am risking two things here, right? You had your 200 right here. This is your
okay,
200 on the 5 minute time frame. What happened on the very first, as soon as the market opened, it rejected it,
that's the hit
right?
rejected. Yep.
And that was a hit rejection. That's number one, right? Number two, this was my call entry, right? I said this is my call entry. If we if we hold the candles above, right,
Yeah.
we can potentially go into calls, right? But when you start noticing these, this rejection on the 200,
Look at
I
those
said,
lips.
okay, we're going to get into puts,
Yep.
right? And we have a stop loss. The stop loss was at 200, so the entry was 248. Stop loss was 200. I did that based off of one thing. If I was wrong, it would test this area right here, right? It would break it, and it would test this area right here. What we have done is gone into calls on the next drop down for the continuation to the upside, right?
Right.
So I played it off of resistance, right? Resistance off of the 200. It was a riskier move, yes. But if you understand your indicators and you understand certain levels, you understand like, okay, well, this wasn't a bad area, right? Because our put entry was over here. All right, so we got into these puts. As it's coming down, I'm taking a look at a couple of different things. I said, okay, where will the price action go down to? This in this market that I have right here, that's your pre-market high,
Got
right?
it.
And this right here at the bottom is your pre-market low,
So
right?
somebody asked about support and resistance
And
levels.
I'm going to get there. And then we'll talk about the support and resistance and how to find it. I got you. Come on, don't worry about it. Um,
But
and
this is also
so,
helpful to set these levels too, though. Even before you get to understanding that, like somebody can take this and it's very simple.
yeah,
Pre-market high,
and
pre-market low.
market low, right? So as this was coming down, a lot of traders would start looking at. I didn't look at the 1 minute afterwards. I was paying attention to the 5 minute time frame, right? To give you guys an idea, okay, well, this is what's going to happen, right? So as it's coming down, I said, okay, the first thing that I want to see is it test the pre-market high,
Okay.
right? Here's your pre-market high. It tested it, it bounced off, but I want to see what the next candle does, right?
Yes.
The
That's
next
important.
candle came back up, towards the base and dropped, right? As this drop was happening, I said, okay, here's my put entry. I'm already in puts. I got into puts way up here, right? So now we're profitable, right? And I'm telling people this is 20%, 30%, 40% scale out if you're uncomfortable, right?
I'm going to tell you,
Now,
this is where I got into puts. You were already in puts, but I missed it.
mhm,
So right there is where I got in
there you go, right?
because I didn't
And
alert people.
as this came down, right, where did it hit? It hit my first price target. So then I said, okay, we're at the first price target. I want to see it hit the pre-market low. Okay.
Yeah.
So it went down, right? It tested the second price target. And as I see, it did not get to where I wanted it to get to. So I said, okay, they're bringing this back up because this is a doji candle happening. And I'm seeing it. And I'm like, you know what? Let's just get out simply because I know that they're going to try to push this back up, right?
Okay.
Because if the continuation, right, would have happened, we would have at least tried to test this area right here, right? This was already a beautiful scalp, right? We made over $100 off of this, right? We're getting that 248, and this was out at
Market went
385,
down.
right? That's you made over $100 within the first 15 minutes of the market opening, right? So, and you notice, right? Like if you waited for the following candle, what happened, right? We started going back up. We came back up and we tested what? The pre-market high, right? So imagine you now riding that elevator and saying, hey, because on your 1 minute time frame, it's going to be a lot different, right? You're going to get wicked out. So let's just take a look at how it would look on the 1 minute time frame. So this is when we entered, which was 9:35, and we exited around 9:45, 9:47. Okay. So let's take a look at the 1 minute between those time frames.
I appreciated the lesson you were talking about in the very beginning of this, where you had a plan that if it tests the pre-market high and there was a continuation, that you would actually you had a plan for that, and also your stop loss for your puts were at 2, right?
Right.
So some people are like, when do I cut my losses? Well, before you go in, you almost should have some sort of like stop loss put into
Right.
place. Like, I'm not going to risk more than that. Like, because I could be wrong, right? The trend
Right.
could go somewhere else. But you weren't. You ended up being right, so it didn't matter.
Yeah. Thank God I was right, right? No, but okay, let's go back into the 1 minute time frame, right? So we were already in over here. People will get scared now looking at the 1 minute time frame, right? Look at all this happening on the 1 minute time frame, and they're like, you know what? I'm gonna sell for a loss. Why? There's, you're looking at the smaller picture. Look at the bigger picture, right? And you just start seeing this entire dump. Boom, 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 boom. We were already out at the perfect timing, right?
Yeah.
But what happens is that you're going to have people chasing all these candles over here now, right, on the 1 minute to get into these puts. You never want to get into puts when it's not hugging the 9. This is your 9, right? You want to pull back before you get into a position.
Yeah.
Right. So understand that this is where you want. And now, as you start seeing it come in, I got back into puts. I did not alert this on Twitter. The reason being is that, like I was very skeptical on the position, right? Because I could have easily, at this level right here, when it came back in this area, you notice what it was just doing, right? Like it was just like this, right? And it was just testing the same level. Imagine if I got you guys into puts again over here, and you're just like, oh shoot,
Wow.
oh shoot, oh shoot, So me being risky, right? Because this was your high, this was your new high, right? It's a lower high.
Hi. Yeah.
So I don't want to get into so I got like, and I'll give you an example. So when I got into puts over here, I got into puts that was $110, right? When it came back over here, it was at $100, right?
Wow.
So I'm down 10. And when it came back over here, I was at $68. That hurts. That hurts because you're out the money, right?
Yeah.
And then I waited because I knew what my plan was, right? So imagine me telling you 110 and all of a sudden it's at $68. Romeo, that's horrible, right?
But there is a
Um,
plan, right?
but what did I do at 68? I added 2 more contracts because that's what my plan was, right? So I got 2 contracts here and I got 2 contracts here, and this dump. When this dump happened, what did I do? I got out right after it hit my pre-market low.
Oh, okay.
And we tested this entire theory right here because I knew that, okay, well, this is holding, right? This is my 3rd price target. I'm going to be profitable, right?
Can we admit that if Apple at any point during the day like really took a dive after that pre-market low, that it was going to die?
Yeah.
Right?
And this is afterwards, right? It took a while for Apple to end up doing that, right? Like imagine, like I said, like you got in over here into puts at the wrong time because you're like broke and now you're watching your account go negative, right?
Uh-huh.
So this is why I said 1 minute time frame, never do that. Wait for a pullback, and go from there, right? And see what you want to do. So let me do this for you guys, right? So I know you guys want to see, okay, like how do you spot support and resistance, right? Or how do you look at support?
Yeah, let's do that one.
All right.
As the market decides to die at the end of the. Yeah, this is fantastic. Go ahead.
So let's just go to the cues. This is a clean chart. I mean, well, it was a clean chart. Let me clear everything out for you guys, right?
Clean no more.
It's not clean anymore. Now it's clean, right? So I'm just going to collect some garbage because it's kind of a little slow on my end. All right. So what you want to do is you look at the 15-minute time frame. And this is just your first section, right? You look at your 15-minute time frame. Then you go to your 30-minute or your 1 hour, your 4 hour, etc. Right? So we'll start off with a 30-minute time frame. And up 20% in 5 minutes, that's phenomenal. Making money. All right. So what you want to do is you want to see where was there support and where was there resistance, right? And how do you find that? Well, it's pretty easy, right? So you want to use pre-market obviously in consideration, right? So if you look at the pre-market on a 15-minute time frame, what happened over here, right? You have that massive drop. This is your pivot, right? This area right here is going to be a demand area, right? Or support area, right? Because as soon as it hit this, what happened? Right? We went up, right? So understand that, right? So when you want to play these levels and you say, okay, I am now going to go ahead and create my little demand area. This is your pre-market, and then you say, okay, well, where is their resistance, right? And you go back now because you're not looking at today, right? You're not looking at it as of right now. You want to go back previously. Where did the major sell-off happen, right?
Mhm.
Where did all the major sell-off happen, right? So you go back further back. This is, let me go right here for you, right? So in this entire area right here, right, this is just kind of like winging it, but then right here is where the sell-off started happening, right? So you had your first drop, you had a little pullback, 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 drop, right? So
So was
now
that first part, was that the resistance?
that's one of the resistance, right? But you want to look at this one right here because this is where the bigger drop happened,
Okay.
right? So what I do is that, okay, well, I know that there's going to be resistance here, right? So what I end up doing is that whenever I give you guys a price target, I say, okay, well, it has to break above this level right here.
And you said you know that that's going to be resistance basically because that's where the biggest drop will happen.
Correct. Any area that you have a pullback and then a drop, that's going to be resistance, right? That's going to be some sort of resistance, right? We're not saying supply. We're not saying supply and demand, right? We're talking about support and resistance. That's what we're looking at as a watch list or on a daily basis, right? So even today, right? So say for instance, we look at today, we know that for the Qs, you can, as you're going into this is on the 15-minute time frame, right? You see your pump. Where did that drop happen, right? And you see that these are tweezer tops, right? I always do it at the base, right? So this is where it happened, right? At this base level right here is going to be where the next resistance is. And what happened here? Did the candles close above it? What happened? It rejected it, right? It rejected this price level, right? You'll notice that as that continues, right? So now you have your pivot. This is your pivot, right? That means that the drop, where did it stop? The pivot, right? It went up, right? So as this is going up, you kind of want to see, okay, where how high can it go to? Well, you saw these two candles. So I like to do this one right here, right? That's my next price target now, right? For the upside. Because if it breaks this, where will price go to? Right here,
Go to that,
right?
the one you just drew before.
Exactly. On the opposite side, right? So now you're like, okay, well, if you get into puts, for instance, right? Or where was the pivots at, right? So you make your drop, you do your pivots at the base of the candle,
Nice.
right? This is your next pivot. Where is price action coming to after it broke this level right here?
Down to that one.
Right. So now if it breaks here, where's the next pivot, right? This is your next pivot in the pre-market area right here,
Okay.
right? And where did this candle hit?
That one right there. Exactly at that pivot point.
That's it, right? And I didn't do anything special, right? I just showed you, okay, well, this is how you look at it, right? And when you, yeah, you definitely can. Um, I think you were talking to me, Q. I don't know. But when you start noticing this is on the 15-minute time frame. So now you can go back and you can look at the 5-minute time frame and you can see how that plays out, right? So you notice that, hey, this was in morning, right? You could start looking in the past, right? Look at yesterday. Look at all these price levels that we just made off
Yeah,
of
they
today
applied to yesterday too. That's
and
crazy.
applied to yesterday, right?
Very simple.
That's it. That's it, right? And so understanding those targeted areas, right? So now as you're looking at these levels right here, you could continue doing the same exact thing, right? So I look for that drop, right? Here's your drop. Now look for the pivot and I just make it, right? Look where it got rejected. There's nothing fancy I did. It's just following where did the drop happen and where was the pivot. That's it, right? So these levels now, as you continue to start playing, when you're looking at those, you'll start noticing that, hey, well, these are the areas that it can potentially go to on the flip side and on both sides, right? That's how I make my watch list for you guys, right? So I look for areas where I say, okay, where these are the price levels that it can go to. So let's just look at Lucid again, just one more time, right? So when I gave you guys this alert yesterday, I said, okay, notice that on the 15 or the 30-minute time frame, and you'll notice that these yellow lines and the green lines, right? And you'll start seeing how it interacts, right? You see that on this yellow, like look how none of the candles closed below here, right? So this is an area that tells me that if it does close, we're going to see the downside. And you'll notice that right here, that rejection right here, right? Dropped. Came in over here, rejected it, dropped, right? Calls. Look at this level right here. You see how it based and it went up. Look at today. Perfect example today, right? That call entry that I said at 50 was a perfect entry because that went up, right? So these are things that you want to, you look at and you want to see, okay, well, how do I enter a position or how do I exit? I've given you that, that method, right? How do you enter and how do you exit, right? So you want to make sure that you look at the 5 minute, you look at the 15 minute. Don't rush into anything because the market's going to give you opportunities to make money, right?
Yeah, like the market's volatile anyway, so you can play both sides as long as you know where your levels are at and where to enter and exit.
And so here's Walmart, right? We missed Walmart in the morning, right? I gave you guys an alert way later on, right? So this was Walmart, and I'm going to go on to the 5 minute time frame because I was just looking at the 5 minute time frame. So when we got into Walmart, or when I alerted about Walmart, I said, this all happened. All this entire scenario already happened,
Yeah.
right? And we're like, shit, like, sorry, I'm sorry. We're like, shoot, you know, we're missing out on this opportunity. We didn't miss out on the opportunity.
No,
I
we get
waited,
another one.
right? I waited. And what did I do? I said, when it was coming back up, my EMA 48 was right here. And I said, I
Ah,
want to see,
yeah,
yep, I want to see if it
there.
comes back here and if it breaks it or not. So when I gave you an entry, right? So I got in, choose right, and I could show you this, right? I got in at 115. My alert for you guys was 105, right? I got in a little bit early because I got in when I saw it test the VWAP and I wanted to see, okay, you know what, I'm going to try and get in right now. And I want to see, does it test my theory that I said it was going to test, right? That, right?
Yeah, look at
My
that.
risk level is different than everybody else's. My alert to you guys was 105, right? So I said, I got in at 115 and I gave you guys an alert for 105. And I did that on purpose because I didn't, if I would have gotten over here, you guys got in 115. Now you guys are seeing the accounts down $10 and you're just like,
Yeah.
oh man, right? I didn't want to do that unless I knew that my prediction was incorrect and we start coming back down. And then when it pulls back, I will let you guys know, hey, now get in at 115, right? So when I'm seeing this price action happening in real time, I said, okay, well, I like what I'm looking at. Let me put out the alert for getting in at 105. Not what I paid,
Oh,
but something cheaper because I wanted you guys to make profit because I knew that this is getting rejected and I got you guys in at 105 and we just wrote it, right? Like this entire section before I went out to,
times did you get in and out of this one?
I didn't. Like I actually day traded it, right? I scalped because I wanted to sell at my goal was to sell it at 200. And how did I determine that number? I said that it should at least test this theory right here, right? Because you have a lower high happening, right? So it's either two things are going to happen. Either we're going to go with a lower low, or we're going to stop very short of this area right here. And that's exactly what happened. We got out right at the moment it was hitting this area because I said that was the area that
So
I wanted to get
you're
out.
out of this play, right?
Exactly. Now, before I went, to run some errands, at this point we were already at 140, and I put it out there. I'm like, hey, it's up to you guys if you guys want to stay or not. I left. I didn't get out because I wanted to take care of some other things. I had a sell order for 205, and I'm just like, I'm just gonna have a sell order for 205. Let me just walk away because I knew it's gonna. I know I'm like, if it doesn't hit, I'm gonna take a loss,
So you
whatever, right?
don't have to sit and watch
Yeah.
the chart. You
This
can have
came
a stop
back,
loss and a sell in place. So those you guys like I have other stuff to do. You can still study the chart
right?
before you get in, and then set your sells.
So when I came back, just looked at my phone. This was at 120. So we went from 140 to 120 and then down to 115, what I paid for. And I'm like, okay, whatever. I saw a rejection on the VWAP. I'm like, yeah, I'm still gonna hold on to this. I'm not gonna say nothing. And then 20 minutes later, we're over here, right? 15, 20 minutes later, we're over here. Now I'm telling everybody, hey, this is where we're at. Start scaling out if you're uncomfortable, right? And then when I got out, it was at 200. I said 205. I wanted to, $95 profit for most people. 105 to 200 is phenomenal, right? And so it actually hit 205, 206, and that was it. After it hit 205, 206, we never saw 205, 206 again, right? At this level over here earlier, it was about 230 or 220, something like that. So I said, if we come back and test it because the day is going, it's not as soon, that means that the value is going to depreciate, right?
Yeah, you
So
got to pay attention to the Greeks. Like,
yep. Yep. So instead of me saying, okay, because the high was was it 227 or 230, I'm like, we're not going to hit that unless we go lower. Right. So I already had that in mentality. It was like, okay, the max that this might drop that could potentially go to is 205 to 210. Right. And that's how I calculated. And I said, okay, this is how I'm going to give you guys my exit strategy. So this entire drop already happened, right? We waited for that pullback. It took a long time for this pullback to happen, and then it dropped, right? And so that's what you have to understand is that you don't have to go chasing all this, right? If you already missed it, you missed it, right? But you could always get back in a little bit later on, and you could always make profits later on, right? So, you know, I want you guys just to understand that, how to look at it and, how to, place on indicators and look at SPY just dropped after that
yeah,
level, right? Like that was a big rejection. That was a huge rejection. Um, right. So we are right back to a range trade today, right? So SPY traded basically in an entire range, right? So if you were able to scalp, you can see that hey, after this whole morning session, right, you want to start noticing how does it trade, right? And you could start playing off of different levels, right? It's all it did was just range trade, right? Between 392, 390, whereas majority of the session traded in between these levels, right? Like in between it, like, and then you had a few that came out, hit one of the price targets, almost hit the price targets to the top, but I didn't care for it because I knew that the contracts were not going to be as cheap as I wanted to be, right? And I was already busy playing, Lucid, playing Apple, playing Walmart.
which is enough, right? Like trying to play too many at one time, you can't really watch them the way that you should watch them.
Yeah.
So, like, typically you should stick to just a couple. You
Just
have to
yeah, there's no reason for you guys to just always play SPY, right?
keep playing it back and forth. Actually,
Yeah.
because if you were playing Apple today, you could have just kept doing that.
Well, yep. Know where your resistance was at each time, right? So as soon as it hits resistance, if it breaks it or not, you buy puts. Keep your stop loss very, very tight, right? And that's basically what I did, right? Like so when I'm going through all these watch lists for you guys, I look at how each level plays out for you, right? So there's that process that comes into place where it's just like, okay, well, does this make sense for anybody to play it, right? So you guys will notice that I never have the same indicators going day in and day out, right? I always change.
Yeah.
I always change it because I have to see if it's worth it or not, right? I have to see if it makes sense.
So
If
are
it
you
makes
in
sense.
anything right now, like before the market closes?
Am I getting into anything right now?
Are you in anything right now?
Oh, the only thing, actually, I am in something right now, and this is just for fun, right? I'm actually in Apple
I want
Lotto
to
calls.
know. Right.
Yeah, I'm actually in Apple Lotto calls, like
Okay.
honestly. But they expire in June, and they were like $20, and I'm like, it's a 165 calls, and I'm like, they're $20, and it's a one, yeah, whatever. If it does hits, it hits. If not, I don't care, right? Because that's all profits, right? I only got one contract. I didn't get 10 contracts or anything like that. For me, like I'm this is how I utilize this, right? So this is a little nice little learning curve, right? When you're seeing all these movements happening with Apple, right? Especially in the morning is the best time to look at it, right? And how I scalp, right? So I looked at, say, for instance, you look at this entire scenario right here, right? Your lotto calls or puts, right, that you have, see the dollar movements that it makes, right? So if it goes from 20 to 35, back down to 20, back to 32, right? Start noticing its patterns, right? Because what you can start doing, and one of our, one of the our Discord members, Russ, used to do this all the time, was that he would then buy 10 contracts or 20 contracts for like $20 and then sell it for $30. Or
Yeah.
he'll buy, right? Because now you already know, like, okay, well, with this kind of movement, you already have an idea of how much your price moves, right? So sometimes people use that as like a leverage to figure out, okay, well, do I want to get more contracts? Or do I want to sell it and then get back in, sell it, get back in, sell it, get back in, right? And imagine you getting a lotto for $20, right? And you sell it for 30, you get back in at 20. You sell for 30, you get back in at 20. You sell for 25, you get back in at 15, right? You just profited very, like, even though they're $5, $10 profits, right?
Yeah.
That's
That's
still profits, right? So you don't have to ride any kind of elevator back
And
and
then you
forth.
also don't have to know a lot of different stocks really well. Like if
Mm,
you trade Apple very well, stick to it. You can
stick to
trade it
it
all day.
all
It
day.
doesn't matter if somebody's trading Tesla or Walmart or whatever. Like,
Mhm.
hey, stick with what you know. And then as you learn more stocks, how they move, what their levels are, then you play those.
Yeah,
Like just because you hear somebody mention something else, put it on your watch list, watch it, but play what you know.
yeah. I mean, like, she probably plays Amazon the most.
Oh,
Um,
I do. Today too, of course. All
right?
right.
See, there you go. Right. So, like, what I'm saying is that when you do these lotto calls or puts, right, and you go a little bit out the money, go a little bit further out, for
Yeah.
like a month or two, right, and then what
Yeah.
you do is just if you feel uncomfortable, buy two contracts for like $20, sell one contract when it gets to $30, wait for the pullback, use that other $20 that you have as a leverage, right, to see the movement back and forth, buy the other additional, sell it, buy, sell it. Within two or three times, you've already made up your profits and more, right? So then it's just like, okay, well, you don't
You
have.
don't have to
I'm
wait.
giving you guys a scenario like what I do, right? So I use leverages often, and it kind of helps me when I'm creating a watch list for you guys too at the same time because
And
it
you
makes
grow a small account like every week as well, right? So you
yeah,
understand the benefit of scalping those small gains. Like literally, take that $10. You don't have to wait for your contracts to expire or anything. Some people, when they first start trading options, think that they have to keep it until expiration. It's like, no, we're not buying a month away to hold it for a month. We're doing that because it's it's safer and it'll help us last through the turmoil of the market. But no, like when you have that gain in a market that's this volatile, you take it. You always take it.
always
It
take
doesn't
it.
matter if, like, yeah, we complain about, oh my God, it could have been 700%. Yeah, we're just complaining, but really deep inside, we're happy we had profit, right? We did
Yep,
not lose. So who cares if it made 1,000% later? You want to make sure that you capture your profit. I don't care if I made $5 and it ended up being $100. It doesn't matter. I made $5. My small account grew. That's all you focus on. And so sometimes it can be kind of cloudy because other people are making huge gains. It does not matter. Take
doesn't
the
matter.
profit. Do it again. Take
Rinse and
$10 every
repeat.
time. Like Romeo on his days that he scalps, I'm like, dude, did you just enter in 20 trades in the past 1 hour? He's like, yep.
Yep.
So you just
So
take it.
this is what I'm going to do for you guys, right? So Obviously, market's closing in 10 minutes. We want to see how this plays out. Those that actually are still with us at 4 o'clock, because we're going to be probably on until about 4:30 ish. I will create a watch list for you based on the stock that you pick, right?
Dun.
So I would say, okay, well, and we'll break it down, right? Like this is something that I will help you guys do, right? So if you have a certain stock that you might want to play tomorrow, write it out. I'll take a look at it and I'll say, okay, well, and I'll let you know truly and honestly. There are times where I'm like, I don't like it, right? So like the other day when we did Disney, I said I love Disney's watch list. Like I loved it, right? We went through, Love was with me. We went through 20 to 50 stocks, and I'm just like, I don't like anything.
It was
Like,
it's rough. It's
I just did not like anything until I figured, until I saw some other ones. But when we did Disney, which was yesterday, right? So look at Disney's, that movement that we had yesterday, right? This was Disney yesterday, right? Market open, rejected our put entry. It came back, rejected it. This is on the 5 minute, on the 15 minute, and just tanked. It was like so beautiful, like it was just the perfect one. And I was telling Love, I was like, look, I like this one, right? And I'm like, you know what, we're gonna play this one. We're gonna put this one in, in there. Yeah, absolutely. All right, so I have UPST. Let me just write this down so that way.
oh wow. That was
I
one
played,
where
I played UPST today. I played I played which one did I play UPST on? I think I did I did puts on UPST in the morning. And that was pretty
in general it moves well, right? So that's one of the reasons I like that.
UPST is going to be a little tough, but I'll take a look at it for you, because that's the name of the game, right? And if I feel like it doesn't look good, I'll let you
We'll
know.
pick something else. Yeah,
Yep.
why not?
Because I never want to give you something that just to give it to you guys, right? Like I can, there's, I'm not gonna, I'm never gonna
Interesting
discredit
your
you.
process though, because like whenever you go down, you start doing those levels, and you're like, no, it's like $7 move or whatever you do, and I'm like, oh, okay, well, let's skip
Yeah.
that one then.
So you'll have people that have watch lists, right? Everybody has watch lists. Every gurus have watch lists. I'm not a guru, right? I try to give you guys something that makes sense, right? There's people out there that I saw the same Apple ones that I had, and they're no, not Apple, Disney. Yes, yesterday's Disney ones, right? The same ones that my levels and their levels was completely off, right?
Yeah, that was
And
tricky.
they would have made you wait another couple of dollars downwards in order for you to get into puts,
You would have
right?
missed that.
And you would have missed that. And that's the thing is like anybody can make a watch list. Like it's easy, right? Once you understand support and resistance, anybody can make it, right? But the problem, here's the thing that majority of your watch list that you guys will see out there, that spread, that eight,
That
ten
spread.
dollar spread, right?
I hate
I'll
that.
give you an example, right? So let's just hypothetically, let's just look at um, Apple, right? Just because we already know today, right? So what they will do, or what majority of traders will end up giving you guys as a watch list, right? They will say, "Hey, calls above here, and puts below the low." That's it, right? And they say, "Okay, play off of these levels." Right? That's easy to do. Anybody could say high and low of the
Right.
day.
That's like huge. What
That's
about
a huge difference,
like
right? This is a lot of money to be left on the table, right? Either way. Does that make sense? So you do not want to always say, okay, well, anybody can say this is a high, this is a low, let's just play off of these resistance. No, there's like money makers are out there saying ha 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 while they're making all this profit, and you're waiting, right? You're waiting and you're waiting for all this, like, and you're just missing out on opportunities, right? Like you are literally missing out on opportunities, right? And so if I am to say, for instance, look at Apple, right? And we're on the 15-minute time frame and it ends where it's at right now, right? What do I do? Because of these kind of movements, and I'm like, okay, well, does what makes sense to me, right? So if I'm looking at, your last pivot, this was your last pivot right here, right? And I say, okay, where did it go up to? This is where they got rejected. This is a further rejection. I look at it, it's 139. This is 139.15, and this is 139.41, right? I will pick between the two what makes more sense to me for you to get into calls. Other people will make you wait to 140,
Mm.
to 150, 142, 141, 142. No, because that's so, you know that if it breaks this level right here, where is the next price going to? Right here. It's that simple, right? This is 139.39. This is a dollar movement. Why would I say, hey, miss out on one extra dollar? Because that's your delta right there. If your delta is $40, you just made $40 off this move,
Yeah, you would have missed that.
right? You would have missed just that, right? So understand that, okay, well, if it breaks this, where's the next level? This is where it got rejected. That's how you know, okay, well, if I get into calls, this is an area for where it can go to. Okay. And then you kind of back test that theory, right? You're like, okay, well, there's nothing that really happened right now, right? Because we're at a low, right? Pre-market movement, you can see what happened, right? But today's movement, you'll notice that, okay, well, this is how it's moving, right?
Mhm.
And being that you see how this candle is coming here, now I got to get rid of that candle, like that line, because we're below that level, right? So then I might have to use today's low, right? So you have to know when you can use certain things. Walmart is a perfect example, right? Because Walmart did not close or is not closing at its low, right? So here's Walmart. So I will look at Walmart now and I say, okay, what do I think? So being that I don't need this anymore for the day, I'm going to clear this out, right? And then what do? I remove everything on my chart.
Start
I
fresh.
want a clean chart, right? I don't need indicators when I'm doing a watch list for you guys. I want a clean chart to show you, or to show or to see, what can it potentially do, and where can we go, right? So then what do? I then remove the pre-market movement on certain things, right? Because you're doing calls and your watch list or whatnot.
Mm.
Um, so I go here, then I'll remove it, and I'll say, okay, now I just have another clean chart. That's it, right? And I start taking a look at, okay, where are my indicators, right? And where do I start looking for calls inputs area, right? This is all I do, right? I take a look at this. I start seeing, okay, do I want to do it here? Do I want to do it here? Do I want to, this is how I start looking at, right? Where is the resistance? Here's your resistance. Where is your demand? Here's your demand, right? So you'll know why is this the demand and not this a demand? Because when it came back down, this is where it dropped and it picked right back up. We did
Right.
not test this area again, right? So you know that this right here is a support area, right? If it breaks that support, obviously you're like a couple cents away from the low anyways. So some traders will like to use, they will say, okay, well, this is an area right here that we can do puts below and calls. Oh, we'll do it way up here because that's where the morning session happened. No, you're missing out on so much profit, if you go this high up, right? Um, do you know what this will be? This will be one of your price targets for your calls up,
There you
right?
go.
That's what it would be. It'd be one of your price targets, right? So you can then decide, okay, do you want to do it here or do you want to do it here, right? And that's your judgment call. Like I cannot tell you, hey, do it here or do it here because there's so much that can happen, right, in between just these levels right here, right?
Yeah.
So I start looking at different time frames. I'll look at, the 1 hour, I'll look at the 30 minute. There's so much. I always feel my spread is so tight, but it is correct so often. And yes, I test my numbers against Romeo and I within yeah, perfect. That's great. And that's what you want to do, right? Like you want to make sure you don't need anybody to tell you. Once you start learning it and you start understanding it, there's more to it though, right? Like, I'm not gonna sit here and give you every single details about it, right? But there's more to it. Um, but this is just kind of giving you an idea of, okay, how am I looking at things, and why, is there certain areas for calls or puts or whatever it is. But this is just a an idea, right? So we got what 15 seconds left in the market, and SPY is at 389.45. It didn't do jack, still around 390, right? Like
It really doesn't tell you much, right?
it doesn't tell me much, right? Because it's still, it didn't close at its low, right? It didn't hit that pre-market. I mean, like it didn't do much, right? Like it went down to what 386 and it just ranged, right? So
Today almost like well, I don't know what the daily candle looks like for today, but
it looks like a doji
that's
almost.
what I was gonna say. It's like one big indecision candle. Like that's all I'm getting out of it.
Yeah,
Um,
it
I
pretty much almost looks like a doji. So
I am
um,
still very much not convinced of of
here's what you got to do, right? Like don't like I see too many people buying into calls and puts to hold overnight on SPY and saying, well, it's going to happen. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what's tomorrow is going to be. Like, like
we
you can
saw
make a prediction.
like SPY for sure. I know I've said this before, but I typically only trade it on expiry days,
Yeah,
right? Because
yeah.
I'm not going to overpay, which you end up doing if you buy it on any other day, and the Greeks will end up killing you every time. And
Killing you.
typically, even though I'm a swing trader, I typically like to scalp or day trade the SPY. It's not something that I would hold over. Like I did with my small account, and I still ended up paper handing it because I bought a 400 put in my small account, and the next day I was like, sell, right? And
Right.
yeah, I sold it before it tanked. Like I took profit, but I could have killed it. But
You
other
could
than
have killed it.
you don't hold the SPY. Like I was already doing something I normally shouldn't do, so I was like, let me sell it.
I
Right?
mean, it's so difficult, right? Because we got lucky with this huge drop, right? Like this was a big drop that happened yesterday, right? But
Yes.
nobody, like no matter what, like you can look at the candles. We were talking about this. We're saying, hey, we seen this hammer. It's more than likely going to come down, right? We were like,
Yeah.
it's gonna, yeah, but it doesn't mean that it always is going to happen, right? Like we've
No.
seen, and I showed them, like, look, we saw different places where it didn't happen right away, right? It took a little while for it to happen, right?
That's why you
And
always
so
have to play the specific trend. I
just
know
play the trend.
somebody
That's
was
it.
asking me why did I switch to calls one day when I'm so bearish, and I was like, because the market said it wanted to go up. Like it said that I wasn't going to sit there and hold puts, even though I'm typically going to buy puts on the spike. That's my strategy. But I saw something different in the chart, so I was like, I bought calls. I swung them overnight. The market was super green in the morning. I sold.
All right, I'm going to look at UPSD right now.
It had a green day today.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah.
But you play the trend, right? Like you got to play the trend. Um, that's all it is. You just had to play the trend. And I play the trend right in the morning. In the morning, it just dropped nice and hard. And that's when I made my profits. I made my profits off of this candle right here.
Why not? That's a beautiful can.
All right, this is a
Nice.
beautiful, beautiful
Yeah.
candle, right? So this is where I played my puts off of. I didn't, like, and I could have got into calls afterwards, but I was just like, yeah, this is
Sometimes
amazing.
people, when you have a really good win, it's okay to step away and enjoy that win. Because
That's it.
somebody else on the platform was like, I made money this way, but I put it all into something else and I lost it. And I'm like, no, when you have a really, really good win, like walk away. Like
Yep.
literally enjoy that win. It's okay if the market still does all this other stuff. Take that win. Don't overtrade for sure. That's the worst feeling in the world when you make this really good profitable day and then you just give it all back.
Yep.
Yeah, we don't want that.
All
So
right. So
it's weird that I know we didn't talk about this a lot, but when we talk about the the last couple OPEX weeks compared to the way it used to be, where you could
mhm.
predict what it was going to happen in OPEX. Um, I have no clue what tomorrow is going to be like, which makes me think that there's probably going to be more of this, more
Yeah.
volatility, um, because I don't see necessarily. Now I'm hoping for some huge spikes or drops because it's more opportunity to make profit, but I could see it just range trading for a while. I don't want that to happen, but I could see it.
It could happen.
Yeah,
It could definitely happen because we've seen OPEX where it didn't do nothing. Like
yeah.
All right, so here's your entries for UPST. I would do puts below here. Let me just put this in here for you. And I would do calls above here. All right, so if it breaks this level right here, right, which is 29.21, it will go down, it will go up to 22.
That's
We're
how
looking at 22.86, 24.01, potentially 24.76. You go further back and see how it plays off. Well, we haven't even been in this area in a while, huh? Yeah, because of the whole sell-off, right? Here we go. So there's so much data that's going to be missing. So I have to like really, really go back and see, potentials. Yeah, because of all this crazy movements that happen, right? Here we
So
go.
where were your lines at when you were talking about UPST?
I said UPST calls above 52.21, puts below 50.57.
Got it.
All right. And this is it right here. Like rejection over here. Right. This was on Wednesday. Drop. Right. See how it held this same area. This is now a support area.
Yeah.
So what happens if it breaks support? It'll come back down, right? So this is how I want you guys to, to look at if it breaks, which way can it go, and if it, you see how it got rejected, and then it dropped, right? And
Yeah.
then what happened once we broke up? It sustained it, right? So the more you knock on ice, right, what's going to happen? It's going to break, right? So the more this level right here, this support level keeps on hitting, it's going to break down, and then we'll start testing these other levels here, right? So, if you're looking at where do you do your entries and your, where's your price targets, right? So your price targets will be at the bases, right? So you could do one over here. It's basically up to you where you feel that the price can drop to, right? So when I do this, I back test it. Where does it get rejected? Where does it hold, right? Not just the wicks, the base candle itself, right? That's the most important part, is because of the base, where it opens, where the base closes, right? Those are where you want to see when you're creating your price targets, right? So you have one at 48.96 area. The next one, you start seeing that, okay, well, where else? Right here, this base right here, because this is where it dropped and it came back up, right? So this is now 46.70. So from your puts entry, you already went from 57, potentially dropping down to 46.70. That's almost a $6 drop. Like, I mean, $4 drop, right? That's almost a $4 drop, which if your delta is $40, you've made money, right? Like you made 160 per contract, right? So understand like where your levels are. This is your next level, right? This is your base of it before the run up. Same concept to the upside. Now the only difference is that there's so much data that's missing because of this drop, right? That UPSD has. So you know that, hey, when this is that gap fill, right? There's so much gap to be filled here, right?
Goodness.
Huge gap that needs to be filled, and eventually it will get filled, right? But like that, okay, well, I could potentially get into calls, if it breaks certain levels, right? UPST. Give me 1 second.
Looking for inside days.
Does it have an inside day?
No, no, no. I haven't gotten to it yet. I was just scanning for other ones for inside days. But I'm on that. No, 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 no. Actually, it had an outside day.
All right. So look how far back I have to go to now for UPST, right? And this is where the work happens, because I want to make sure that you guys have price targets that it can attain. So, I start going back. I backtrack it. This is back in March of 2021, right? So now we're looking at March of 2021 numbers, right? To kind of have an idea of, where can the price go to, right? So I'll start looking at different areas of rejection and where it held. Oops. Right. So I have this level right here. Oh, sorry, this level right here. right? So that's 55.97. Then the next pivot back down on the drop, where did it sustain? Right here, right? So that's 57.97. Same thing, right? So you start going and just start looking for different price targets that it can potentially go to, right? So we're looking at 52.51. Five price targets is 60.19, right? That's it. And you can start doing the same thing on the opposite side, right? So just to have, if you want more leverages, right? So that's it. That's your watch list for UPST. Um, you can match it up now with yours. So never just use mine and just to be like, okay, well, I'm just going to use it because Rome's used it and he's been accurate. No, 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 no. Never do that, right? Always create your own watch list. Always make sure that it matches or it it matches what you're thinking. Okay. So don't just rely on
You should never
um,
do that for anyone. You should always like, especially when it's a stock you don't know, you should know the stock before you get into any sort of trade, no matter who it is that recommends it. Like, you always double check
mhm.
because it's your money.
No problem, Rich. Um, yeah, so like always, like you gotta like this is QS. QS looks ugly. Um, so let's just see 28. This is your pivot. Where is the next resistance at before it dropped? Was already over here. Where did it close? It closed below. Oh, you're killing me here with this one. See, this is the one that I don't like. You know,
QS.
I don't like it. Let me just see.
That would get kicked off of the watch list. People would be like, mm-mm.
Yeah, and it's because and it's not because like I don't ever I don't want you guys to think like, oh well, he doesn't know, that's why. No, it's because I don't like I don't like
The
the
price
movement,
action,
right?
right? It's
Like
not.
it has to make like yeah, it has to make sense for me. Like okay, I can say, hey, well, below this closing, right? Yeah, I can say that, but I'm looking at this candle over here, and it really like it would freak people out. Like this is not a strong, just because we closed at this range right here, this would have been my actual one right here because that's where your pivot was, but then it came back down, so now this theory is gone, right? So I can say, okay, well, where is the next drop? There really was no next drop, so I have to go back into the following day and I'm saying, okay, this is it right here. But now you're at 11:26 and it's at 12:30. Do I want you to wait for a dollar move, almost a dollar drop to get into a put? No, absolutely not. Right. So, like I said, I can just say, yep, here's your levels right here. Play off of it. There you go. Play off of it. That's your levels, right? That's what most people will do. They will say, these are your levels, play off of it. You're talking about over a dollar movement on QS, right? On QS, anytime it moves up 50 cents to 25 cents, 30 cents, 50 cents, your options are already up 10, 20, 30% because they move, like the movement is a lot different, right? So your percentage is quicker because your dollar amount that you're paying for is a lot cheaper. So I'm sorry, QS, I can't. And that's me just being transparent and honest, right? Like if you want it, this is it right here. Your highs and your lows for the day. But I cannot give you that.
Action. Yeah,
Yeah, I cannot do it.
for
Yeah.
sure.
Any other ones I have watch list or any questions?
No, I was just scanning through my watch list, and the charts don't really tell me much in terms of, I was scanning for inside days because that's what B looks for. I didn't see very many. I saw three. I think AMC had one, MSTR had one, and Coin had one.
All
So
right.
that doesn't tell me much. Like, you just like, yeah, I don't know.
So this is just okay. Without even looking at any kind of charts, right? This is going to be a quick because you guys are here, so you guys can get a nice little quick lesson from me.
I want a lesson.
All right. So this is a nice little quick lessons. If you do not know how to use indicators, okay, because there's a lot of people that don't know how to use the MA9s, they don't know how to use the 20s or whatever. Sometimes it's just a little way too much, right? And never.
A lot of them. I mean, as someone who tried to experiment with Weeble and figure this stuff out on my own, I'm like, I have no clue what these things mean, right? The EMAs, the SMAs. Why is there somebody uses a 13 and somebody else uses a 48? It's like, what is going on here? Now I have to add the 48 to my list because I'd never used that one before.
That's it. All
Yeah.
right. So it's 10 o'clock in the morning, right? And this is right here. And you're looking at QS. And you're saying, hey, QS, this is 10 o'clock in the morning. What do I do? Right? You don't know any indicators. You're just like, okay, well, do I play puts? Do I play calls? Because, like, you're like, okay, well, I'm going to play puts because I feel like it's going to go down. Never do that, right? You play the trend. But this is what you want to do. When you see the morning open and you see you want to look for your pivot points. This is your pivot point, right? And you want to see it come up, right? So in the morning, you had that come up right here, and then it stopped here, right? You waited for that candle. You're just looking at this is 10 o'clock. So you say, okay, at this base level right here, right? If the candles come back up and it tests it and it holds it, you could potentially get into calls, right? Why? Because this level held, right? This was where you had that pump, you had some sort of like support in this area. You wait for that retest. This is your retest, right? And see if it holds and breaks above, right? So it broke here. You wait for that next candle, how it's looking right here, and now you can get into calls. How do you get out? Because you don't know how to get out of your calls if you're in them, right? Same exact thing. As this is going up, you wait for the next candle, see what it's doing. What you do is create a base right here because this was your run up to this candle, right? This is your exit strategy. If you got in right here, right, because it broke up, this is break even, right? You're out, you break even, right? You continue that same lesson. So this is your candle. You wait for the next up. Okay, I'm going to move my stop loss now. If the candle closes below this one right here, as it's going up, the same exact thing, right? You're like, okay, this is your candle because this hasn't happened yet. And you say, if it closes below this candle, I'm out. It closed below that candle. You can get out. You don't have to keep riding the trend, right? Because if you don't have time, you don't know what's all those candles is happening, right?
Yeah.
So then when do you enter puts? Where did it give you an opportunity to enter puts? There hasn't. If it breaks any of these levels that you created off of the candle, that's it, right? So when you're playing these candles and you said, okay, if it breaks here, I could get into puts as long as it retests this, right? You want that break confirmation retest to the upside, and that's it. Right? There's no reason for you to get into puts to try to call the top, right?
Yeah.
So understand that, and as you start noticing, right, and you start your day just keeps going and going. Yeah, you missed out on this extra run or whatever, but you didn't know what was happening, right? You're only playing because you don't know how to use your indicators. You don't know what the nines, the 20s, or VWAP or any of that is, right? And you don't know this price action because no one is telling you what this price action is, right? You are here. It is 10:45, right? You're securing your profits. This hasn't happened yet, right? We're knowing that this is happening because this is already done, right? Like we've
Right.
already experienced this, right? So that's how you can start scaling out of your positions, because if you do not know how to look at charts or read any kind of options right now, say for instance, if this didn't happen, right? If all this, you see this move didn't happen and it broke, and you see how this candle right here, this one went up. If this one was at the bottom, right? That's an opportunity for you to potentially get into puts, right? Because they rejected this level right here, right? So I can't even show you because it's obviously didn't happen in real time. But basically, what I do is like if this level right here breaks to the downside, right? So if this candle was here instead at the bottom, right, and it couldn't break back up, that's an opportunity for you to get into puts because this is acting as what? Resistance,
Right.
right?
And it
This
can break
didn't,
it.
Yeah, and you waited for it. It came back down. You want that. You don't need to get into puts here. You want to see if it retests this. This is your retest candle. No, it didn't break, right? It broke back up. Following candle, doji candle, right? Closed above your other candles. This is very important. Where did this candle close? It closed above here. It closed above here. Higher close candle. Does that make sense? So you
Mhm.
don't need to get into puts at this level, right? You want that confirmation. You see how this and this candle close. So if you would have probably played off of this level right here, yeah, you could have scalped, but you probably would have watched it come right back up, right? Because you didn't know how this plays out, right? Because you had to wait for that confirmation. Where did this candle close? It closed above both of these two candles, right? Where did this candle close? Above all three of these candles. Where did this candle close? Above all of the other candles, right? Did this candle close below this one, this one, this one, this one, or this one? No,
Mhm.
right? This candle did not close below the previous high. So you don't have to get out of your puts or your calls at this level, right? What you can do is you know that this level right here, you can do it even at the top of the wick. You say, okay, I am in calls over here. If it comes back down and it tests this area, I'll get out because this is your higher. You want to see it come back down if it comes back down or not, right? And you keep changing that, right? So you look at the next candle. We were already here, right? This candle, did it close above this candle? Yes, it did. This one closed above all these candles. This one closed above all the candles. This one closed below this candle. So now you say, okay, if the candle closes below this one right here, I will get out. Right? That's how you basically sorry. Remove. All right. So now we're over at this candle. You do the same thing consistently, right? So because you don't know what the price action is giving, right? And you're in calls based off of just this. You're not looking at the chart. You're not looking at trends. You're not looking at anything else. And you're just playing off the five. This is on the 5 minute chart because you're still new to everything, right? You don't need to play the 1 minute chart or the 3 minute. Play the 5 minute chart, right? You're in here, right? And while everybody else is like, do I get out? You're just playing off of basic, simple mythology, right? So
So
now, go ahead.
what you since someone was asking about the different minutes and the different minute charts you look at, they all serve a different purpose.
Correct.
So it depends on what you're trying to do, which one you look at, right?
Mhm.
So
My
like
1 minute is my entries, me
yeah,
personally.
it's
My 5 minutes,
right when you're
yeah,
scouting.
when I'm
Yeah.
scalping, even if I'm not scalping, right? If I'm day trading, right? My 1 minute is always going to be my main entry. My 5 minute gives me an idea of what the price action is doing. That's it, right? So my 5 and my 15, like if it's within 30 minutes of the market opening, I only look at the 5 because the 15 hasn't accumulated enough data for me, right? So after about 10 o'clock is when I start looking at the 15-minute time frame to see how, what kind of data do I have, right? And I give you an example. When I got into these Apple puts, there was a 1.3 million call sweep coming in for the 140 calls for next month. I didn't care because price action told me one thing, regardless of what option flows and sweeps were coming in.
When people those different sweeps, options, blocks, think whatever it is, puts or calls, they're tricky. They're not. You can't just take them at face value. You have to know if somebody's like if somebody's if it's bid side, ask side. You never know if they're hedging. So did you see a big call sweep and then see a big put sweep right after
No,
it?
I just saw a call sweep. That was it. But I feel like that's probably
General,
hedging. Yeah.
general, like because sometimes people see one and they'll stick to it, and it's like no. Sometimes those big hedge funds are literally hedging,
Right.
right? And so you'll see this huge call sweep come in and see another put sweep that kind of just balances it out. And so don't just like see one and take it like those sweeps should only be taken as additional information, and you have to look at the whole picture. So no matter, like Romeo said, you might see this huge call sweep come in for Apple, but it doesn't matter if the chart is telling you to buy puts, right?
Exactly.
And then
So,
they use
uh,
different time frames and things like that. So please be cautious when you guys look at those things.
all right. Last one that I show you because we know that QS was easy, right? Because it just kept going up, right? How do you do Apple? This is how you do Apple, right? So say for instance, we're looking at data that hasn't happened. It is 9. Oops. Let me zoom out a little bit more. All right. It is about 10 o'clock. This is 10 o'clock, right? How do you play off of just this entire scenario? Well, you know that this area right here, like I said, like everything stays the same. This is your base, right? And then you look at the bottom one, where did it stop, right? And you look at the base of all the candles right here. So now you say, okay, well, if it goes below, maybe I might get into puts, or if it holds, I could get into calls, right? Because these are the level that it's giving me. Okay. You do not get into anything right now. You can play puts off of this if you want. If it doesn't hold, right, for the downside, you can get into calls if it breaks above, right? Because this is an area where there's now resistance, right? Because you see how this candles happen, right? Same thing. You could play calls off of here, or you play puts if it breaks. So now, as the time is continuing, what is happening? Nothing is happening, right? In this 5 minute time frame, there's nothing happening. It's not breaking above or below these levels. You continue doing that. Aha, what's happened here? Okay, this is your break, right? It broke where your line is. This is your next candle, right? Do you can if you want to get in, that's completely up to you. But sometimes what you want to do, you want to wait for that retest, right? You want to see if it comes back and tests its there. You might miss a lot of plays, right? But what happened? Nothing happened. It came back. It came back. What did it do? It came back and retested this area. Did it break above? No.
Nope.
So now on this candle, you can
Now
what?
you retest. You've already seen the retest. You can get in.
You get into your puts. Okay, this is where it gets interesting, right? Because now you have this same exact thing. You are in puts, right? Now you make your, sorry, because I'm looking at two different computers. All right, so this right here is your exit strategy if it comes back on the following candle or not. Did it come back? No, right? Did the candle close? No. Continue doing the same exact thing. And right here, as this candle is coming, you see, right, okay, this is where it closed. You do it right here now, right? Or you could do it right at the top of this one. I would actually do it right here, right? So now you remove this one because you know that this is the base of it. If it comes back and it closes, right, you get out. What happened over here? It went over, it closed above it. You're out of your puts. That's it, right? This entire move that you got in over here to here was over $1 move without you even knowing what the market is doing, right? So that's it, right? It's a small move, but that's $1 movement. Just because you waited for that
Why
right
pay
entry.
to take profits? Like I think too many people would want more, and so they would continue to hold it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Those
Mm-hmm.
puts. It was like you have to play with the market gives you the chart. You see that movement right afterwards. That means your puts are not profitable anymore. Right?
Exactly. So now they're like,
So
okay, well, if it comes over here, Romeo, because we got into puts and it broke this level, do you get into calls? You wait for that retest. Here's your retest. Not yet. Not yet. It's still hugging it, hugging it. Oh, it broke down to the downside. Do you get into puts? Not yet. What do? You wait for that retest. This is your retest right here. It broke. Okay. Now you can potentially get back into puts
now
if
you
you
get
want
back
to,
in, right?
right? And the same exact thing. You already have this price level over here because that's where your exit, that was your entry prior, your exit prior. You wait to see if it breaks. It broke. Okay. Now you can use that as a leverage because you got in over here. This is your leverage. If it, if you can watch, right? This is all if you can watch the market, right? And at that point, Wizard, you don't have to get out, right? If your entry was over here and if you're able to watch the market, right? If you're not able to watch the market, same thing, right? So you start going back and you're like, this is where you're at. You now just basically create your levels, right? Hey, if it breaks above this one right here, I'm out, right? What did it do? It broke it right here. You're out. You still profited from this candle over here, which was at 139.31, and you exited at 137. That's a $2 movement. Be happy with it. right? If you can't watch,
Yeah.
right? But if you can watch, your entry is here, right? You can basically wait it out until this level right here if you wanted to, right? Yeah, it sucks because you probably would have lost more profit, but what happened over here?
I mean,
It
that's the
rejected your
market that
idea.
we're in, though. Like, we're not in a market where you should hold things. Let's just be honest.
Yeah.
Like,
But
even
you
so,
just play off of your levels. This was it right here, right? You can get out because it came back. You're like, what's the chances I could come back up? There's a big chance, right? Once it breaks above, there's a big chance. Or you could kind of wait it out a little bit longer, right? And then once you start seeing that it didn't break back down, get out of your puts. It's that simple, right?
like you
So
said, for the people who can't do that, though, like there are some people who cannot watch this chart. They don't see these levels. They won't see any of that. You can have a strategy that works for you, even in this market,
mhm,
but you basically have to plan a little bit more than most people do, right?
yep.
You're gonna have to look at the levels, the movement of the chart the day before, um, in whatever time you do have that you can glance at it. That's when you're gonna have to be kind of more specific about your levels, and then
Mhm.
plan ahead in terms of stop losses.
Yeah.
Like,
But this isn't easy to do, right? Like, you're gonna play with emotions. It's all psychological. It's easy for me to tell you, get in here, get in here, get in here, right? But at the end of the day, like, you have to understand that what is your risk tolerance. Make sure you have a stop loss in place, right? Because at any given time, it's so easy to show a chart that's already happened.
oh yeah, but when it's happening,
Anybody can do that. You
right?
know what I mean?
Um,
Like, when you're able to, like, go back, you look at the video that we were in last time. We live traded.
yeah.
Was 11 o'clock, whatever. We live traded, right? And this was real time live
Oh
trading,
yeah,
right?
yeah. I was getting into stuff as we were talking, like
Yeah,
which
and
buy
you'll
ever
see,
have bought to
yeah, if you
ever.
haven't watched it, go back and watch it because that would actually show like real, true, life. Like, I was like, Power Hour was not Power Hour today, so that's was I was like, you know what, love, let's just use this as a lesson, right? And
Yeah, it was just weird. Even though futures turned from green to red, but then they started range trading, there really wasn't much opportunity. Like Tesla just basically green, red the whole day.
that's it. Yeah, that's it.
Day.
You could rewatch it. You could rewatch it. I'm not gonna repeat the last 30 minutes. You could rewatch it. Rewatch the video. That's too funny. All
I
right. Well,
let me
love.
repeat the last 30 minutes, whatever. I am in general though, like we said, the SPY kind of closed in a place where it's just indecision for the most part.
390 area. That's what we were predicting yesterday.
Yeah.
390.
And so yesterday we were making predictions, I think, during the day. Today it just didn't really, I don't know what tomorrow's going to be like. Normally I try to do that, but just like yesterday, I didn't know really what today was, and guess what happened? It pretty much like just went back and forth all day. Tomorrow,
Yeah.
I don't know. I have no clue. So I'm excited to see what the market actually does. Right, the charts do in real time tomorrow. That's what I'm looking at.
Understand that you don't have to trade at every single moment of the day. I was done early. I made my
Yeah, I
profit.
stopped.
I was happy.
I
Why would I? Yeah. This was just to get on to, to give you guys a session.
I think I
Love
stopped
was done.
actually
Yeah.
somewhere around 11:30. I was like, I'm done for the day.
Yeah.
Um, That's it. And that's what's so nice about whenever you do have a really good win. Say you played Apple this morning, right? There was no reason that you had to keep trading for the rest of the day. You were good.
Yeah.
Like you did a great job,
Don't get greedy.
survive until the next day. Because that's what kind of market we are in. Like
Yeah.
if you let it, it's like a casino. The longer you stay there, they'll take your money.
They'll take your money.
Like,
Especially if you don't have your stop losses in place. Like,
and
yeah.
I'm risky, so I'm more likely to be like I'm to keep trading than anybody else. So I practice just putting my phone down. Like if I took the time like Romeo did and looked at the levels and did all this kind of analysis for myself, then I should be fairly confident in my trades. If I see all this intra movement, it's gonna lead me to over trading for sure. Because I'll be like, oh man, let me get out, let me get in, let me get out, which works for some people, but for me, it gives me anxiety. So I just say, I trust my analysis. I'm putting the phone down. And it works for me because A, I swing trade, and two or B, I buy time. So even if I am wrong and I see my account go down and it's red and I'm like, I might have been not right yet, but I have time. So let me just put it down and let it go.
Yeah, she just buys puts on everything. That's all it is.
That's it. And eventually,
Everything.
the market will eventually, you know. So if you give yourself a week or two or a month, hey, like Amazon kind of wanted to go negative today, but barely missed it, and I'm like, it's okay. My puts are for June, so I have time for it to do what it wants to do.
How you put stop loss for it depends on what you're using. So if you're using like I use TOS, and so what I do is I do percentage stop loss, right? So if I'm up 30%, I'll say minus 10 trailing stop loss 10%, right? So basically, if it goes up to 40% and then comes back down to 30%, I'll be triggered out. It's easier for me to use trailing stop loss if you're using Webull or if you're using other ones, right? So if you notice on my Twitter alert that I did, right? I did it for Walmart earlier, and I said, hey, Walmart's at 180, stop loss 160 to 170, right? Because you want to make sure that you're still trying to secure the max profit available
Yeah.
while making sure that you don't lose out on additional profit, right?
So you know what, you kind of have to. I hate to say it, it's one of those things that with experience you get better with. If you don't have the ability to have a trailing stop loss, then you're gonna have to you're gonna have to choose a stop loss and be okay with that.
Yeah.
And then when you go back and you write in your journal about what you did and what you left on the table, then you adjust it. So if you're not having the ability to do a trailing stop loss, first of all, you can probably find a platform where you can do it. So you can choose that. And if you're like me and you just don't, then you're gonna have to kind of work with it.
Yeah. Like, and always be comfortable, right? So say for instance, if you're in a play and you're paying $100 for it, right? You know that, okay, well, what is your risk tolerance? Are you going to do 10%, 15%, or 30%? And that's it. You base your stop loss off of that. But we are up at time. I could go on forever, and so can Love. But I think we're getting kicked out now. So
You getting kicked out, Carlos?
Having some issues here with my phone, but everything's
I have
good
to
now.
mute you. All right. Well, I appreciate you guys coming in. Love, if you have any last words.
No, but I'm looking forward to your watch list, sir. I know it's gonna be harder today because we didn't have anything else, but I'm ready. I'm ready for that watch list.
Definitely. Be out there. You guys will see it on Twitter. You guys will see it on Discord. You guys will see it on Webull. Other than that, thank you for joining us. It's been a pleasure. Talk to you guys soon.
Bye.
Bye.